What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Windy City Gridiron Radio. With you, as always, your host, Robert Zaglinski. And today, in the next of our Bears 2018 opponent season previews, we're going to get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Mr. Eating W's, Jameis Winston, of course, will be the center of this conversation. With me to help break down what's going on with the Buccaneers in the offseason, and then eventually discuss Tampa Bay and Chicago's matchup in week four in the upcoming in the fall is writer for SB Nation's Bucs Nation, Alex Salvarezza. I said that right, correct?
Yes, you did. Happy to be on. This should be a good time.
Should be a good time indeed. I told you in the pre-show that we would discuss a lot of Jameis. I hope that isn't too much of an issue.
No, not at all. Not at all. I definitely I have my criticisms of Jameis, and I have my love for Jameis. So I think it'll be a good balance of both.
We'll test that for sure. But before we get to that, an overarching point, Alex, huge step back. I think a lot of people painted the Buccaneers as a playoff contender, as a team was finally coming into its own in 2017. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen. And the Buccaneers really, really struggled. The defense had, I believe, the worst pass rush in terms of sacks in the NFL. Jameis Winston didn't really progress the way, I guess, Tampa Bay envisioned. And this is off a statistical line and in general. In your mind, in a nutshell, what happened last year?
I think it was a combination of many things. I think, like you said, I wouldn't necessarily label it as a huge step back from Jameis. He did hurt his shoulder in the team's second game, which obviously because of the hurricane, they got canceled week 1. So he did hurt it in week 3. He was never really fully healthy again until I believe it was week 13. And down the stretch, he played some pretty good football. Even with the hurt shoulder, he still put up 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Obviously not the best season, but not the worst. But I think people look at it as a regression because of the record that was in 2016 and the record that was in 2017. Obviously, in 2016, they were a bit of a surprise team. They went 9-7. They went on a nice winning streak, just missed the playoffs. And then this past season, they dropped down to 5-11. And it seemed like at the time everything was going wrong. But there is still definitely, like you said, issues with Jameis Winston. He still does, I think he's always going to be that quarterback that's a turnover-prone, interception-prone quarterback. He's got that gunslinger mentality that many quarterbacks have. I often compare him to Brett Favre in that sense. But I think the thing that bothers fans the most with Jameis is the fumbles. He lost a lot of fumbles last year, and to compile that with the interceptions, well, now you're looking at a real problem. And I think that that's definitely something that needs to be fixed heading into this season.
I find that interesting that you compare him to Brett Favre. Do you think he has a comparable ceiling? Because, I mean, at his best, Favre was an MVP for 3 straight years in a row in the 90s.
I'm not saying that Jameis will ever, maybe he will be. I don't think we know yet. Many people right now probably don't expect him to be an MVP. If I had to say, I probably wouldn't expect an MVP type season. So I'm not comparing him to in that sense. But I think when you look at it, Brett Favre also threw a lot of interceptions in his career, and I think that that's the type of thing that I'm comparing. I think that no matter what, even in Jameis's best season that he'll have in the NFL, I still think in a full season he'll probably throw over 14 interceptions. That's just the type of quarterback he was. He was like that in college, and it's translated to the NFL. So, I think that that's always going to stick with him. But there's other areas he can obviously improve on.
A non-football discussion on Winston, but it might affect, I think you know what I'm about to allude to, but it might affect his status, at least early on in 2018. Excuse me. Back in November, Jameis had an incident with an Uber driver where he was accused of groping the Uber driver. The NFL is reportedly still investigating allegations, and as I peruse general Bucs news, it's still his status is still up in the air as to what kind of suspension he still might get. My question for you, Alex, is from a football standpoint, how many games without Winston can Tampa Bay withstand, depending on the sentence? So I will start with that. And then second, this is a guy that obviously has a history of these kinds of incidents. We can't shy away from that. Is there still concern within the Buccaneers community, within writers, within fans, about him growing up and actually taking control of the franchise? So let's start with the actual withstanding his loss.
Well, I think when you look at Tampa Bay's beginning of their season, they probably have the toughest 3-game stretch, not only to open the season, but the toughest 3-game stretch out of any team in the NFL that they will face all season. They open up in New Orleans, and then they come home and they play Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. So that's their team's first 3 games. So to not have Winston in all 3 of those would be absolutely detrimental to that team, and it could start out as an 0-3 season, and before you know it, it's not even the end of September, and you're looking at an uphill climb. So to answer that question directly, I think the team can maybe withstand 2 games, but definitely not any more than that. What I've been hearing around the team's writers and stuff is some stuff came out last week that they're anticipating a 1-game suspension. And the reason that they're anticipating a 1-game suspension is because there's simply just not enough background information on this. There's simply just not enough to put a case together and truly go and suspend him for 6 games. There's been, like I said, talks of a 1-game suspension. And I think, they open up in New Orleans. Will they win that game with Winston? I don't know. They haven't won in New Orleans in like 4 or 5 years. They seem to never win in that place. So, that was a tough game out of the bat. So if Bucs fans, if you were to look at it, and if you were to tell me, well, Winston's going to be suspended for 1 game, he's going to miss the one in New Orleans, I think that I'd be okay with that, knowing that that's a tough game either way. And your second question.
Yeah, the maturity. That's what I was going to say. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not as in tune with the media and seeing how Winston is every day, but like I said, he's had a lot of incidents, especially since in college, and he's still coming into his own. That's going to be his 4th season. Is there concern about him actually growing up and becoming the leader that a quarterback is expected to be? Like, just as a refresher.
I think that there's definitely a little bit of concern. You don't want these incidents to continue to pop up. We saw that incident on the field last year with when they were in New Orleans, and he poked Marshawn Lattimore, and it caused Mike Evans to come like a bulldozer truck and bulldoze him over. But I definitely think that there's some maturity concerns. He is only, I believe, 23, might be 24. I don't know why I can't remember that right now. So he is still a young kid, but he does a lot of things in the community, and the media doesn't seem to cover many of the things he does. So he is very positive in the community down there, and I think that obviously you're going to hear the negative stories. You're not always going to hear the positive stories, but I do think that especially among some fans don't have concerns. Other fans do have concerns. So I guess we'll have to see. But from my perspective, I don't have a concern. I think that I don't know what to say about that incident. Like I said, there really hasn't been any information since that came out. I know Ronald Darby came in his defense and said that he was sitting in the back seat instead of the passenger seat. So who knows? It's his word against her word. Back and forth like that. But personally, I don't have any concerns. But to directly answer your question, there are fans and there is media down there that do have concerns about it.
To top off this Winston discussion, so he's going to be entering his 4th season. I do believe his 5th-year option was picked up, correct?
Yes, it was picked up. I believe it's $20.1 million. So.
Okay. So with that, soon there will be extension talks.
Yep.
would you? I'm assuming you would give into him. You would give one to him. But what's the risk involved here, and especially given how the quarterbacks, you don't have to be the best quarterback, is what I'm saying here. You don't have to be the best quarterback to be the highest paid.
Oh yeah, I mean we see that
So,
every offseason.
so Winston, more than likely, when he gets his extension is going to be the highest paid. Are you comfortable with that? Whenever this happens.
Right now, if he was to be the highest, if they were to sign him to an extension right now and make him the highest paid quarterback, no, I would not be comfortable with that. Um, I think that he's probably going to get money around what Jimmy G got. Will he pass that Matt Ryan at $30 million a year? I don't know. That's a decision that ownership and they're going to have to make in terms of what to offer him. But I think you look at it, he's had a successful season in 2016. His rookie season was, for a rookie and the team that they had at that point, he had a very good season. Like you said, he took a little step back last year. This is a big year for him. This is his fourth year. He was at minicamp yesterday, and he kind of said it best. He said, we got to go out and win football games. It's time to go win football games, and it's time, that we go do what we have to do. And I think that the national media perspective on Jameis Winston, in terms of him deserving that type of contract, won't change unless he starts winning games. But right now, no, I would not be comfortable making him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I actually wrote an article about it a few weeks ago, predicting what he might get in his first contract, because obviously he's going to be up for another big one. He'll be up for 2 in his career. And I said that he would get a contract around what Derek Carr got. And I think when Derek Carr signed his, he maybe got $23 or $24 million a year. I think it's a lot for Winston. I think it's a lot for Winston to ask for $30 million a year for a few reasons. One, he hasn't really won anything yet. 2, like we talked about, still some off the field concerns. And 3, many of the quarterbacks who are highest paid in the league have went to a Super Bowl. He hasn't even made the playoffs yet. So, it's tough. But then at the same side of it, you look at Jimmy G. He has 7 career starts, and he's making, what is it, $24, $25 million a year, So it's a tough decision.
What if I painted to you, because you mentioned the Garoppolo deal. Most of a Garoppolo's money is paid up front, so he's going to get most of his money within the first 2 or 3 seasons of the contract structure. Is that something you'd be more comfortable with if, say, Jameis got that this August or this September? Like, would that be fine for you? Like, so he would get all the money up front, but then if he ended up not panning out, perhaps in that scenario, they could eventually cut ties with him after 2018 or after 2019, since all the guaranteed money was already paid out. Was that something more palatable for you?
I mean, yeah, I think in terms of that would be an option, but I don't think that they're gonna give him an extension until at least next summer.
Okay.
I think the extension will probably come after this season. I believe there was a report out yesterday. I believe it was Ira Kaufman. He reported that the Glazers are in parentheses, I believe the word was, expected to cut Winston a massive paycheck. So it's funny that you brought that up. So we'll see. I mean, I think ownership is all in on him. Like I've mentioned to you several times already, there are certain fans down here that aren't all in on him. And I think that the upfront thing, I don't think that Winston would necessarily go for that. I think the Jimmy G situation is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I don't think Winston would necessarily go for that. But I think when you look at it, because Kirk Cousins, he signed a 3-year deal fully guaranteed.
Yeah.
So could we look at something like that with Winston, like a 2-3-year deal? But at the same time, I think he would want more of that long-term contract, especially this early on in his career. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And on that point to where you mentioned that fans aren't sold on Winston. I mean, I think That's a common theme for literally every city in the NFL. Well, you could even be Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, and there would still be haters.
Yeah.
There'll still be people clamoring at like the most accomplished quarterbacks because they threw a pick one time, or that's not exactly a uncommon thing. You're not alone in your struggle, Alex.
Yeah, no, I know. I know. I mean, I've been a Bucks fan for a long time, and it's been a while since we've made the playoffs, and I think that's a huge part of it down here. Is I think that we're just I think we just want to see a playoff game. You know what I mean? I think we want to see a game in Week 17. That matters. That if we win, we're in. Something like that. I think that's what this fan base is truly striving for. Because back in the days where it was where it was the Gruden days and that stadium was sold out every week and, the place was loud. Now, I mean, their home opener against Philly, it'll probably be a home game for the Eagles, to be quite honest with you. I mean, Philly fans travel well. And, I think that's just the narrative down here is they want to get behind the team, but they haven't really given us a reason to fully get behind the team. You know what I mean? Or at least the majority of the fans. I'm all in, but I'm all in every year.
I respect that. Let's move to Deshaun Jackson. So he was another person that had high expectations going into last year, especially next to Mike Evans, one of the better, more elite playmakers in football. Jackson was seen by a lot as the perfect complement to the overall complete skill set that Evans offers. But 50 receptions, 668 yards, 3 scores. That's not for a 31-year-old receiver. That's to be expected that he might be on the downhill slope, but that's not what the Buccaneers were expecting. They thought I'd imagine they thought that there was probably a little more left in the tank, or that it wouldn't start now. So my question to you is, would you still look for a move to potentially trade Jackson? Would you perhaps try to phase him out of the offense? Would you try to implement him more and get him more involved and try to unlock whatever he has left? What's your move here with him? Because this was a high-profile free agent move last year and it didn't work out well, Alex.
Yeah, with Deshaun Jackson, there was a few elements last season. Obviously, I suspect that you probably didn't watch a lot of Buccaneers games.
Yeah.
But the coaching staff didn't put Jackson in the greatest position to succeed. And when they did put him in a position to succeed, which obviously he has been, one of the best deep threats in the NFL the past few years, and he still is. Absolutely. He still is. When he was open a lot last year on deep balls, and deep balls is one of the things that Winston struggled at last season. He missed Jackson maybe 5 or 6 times on deep balls, and it wasn't like that. They didn't miss by a bunch. They missed by a little bit, but the chemistry between the two wasn't fully there. It just wasn't fully developed yet. And I know that both of them, Winston and Jackson, have been working hard this offseason to try and fix that. I do not think that the Buccaneers will move on from him. I know that there's been, in the last week, should the Bucs look to trade Jackson? Should they look to do this? I don't know what you could get for him. I mean, what's a realistic thing that you can get for him? Maybe a 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick? I don't know. I'd rather have Deshaun Jackson this year than a 5th-round pick next year.
Yeah, 5th or 6th rounders. They're such a crapshoot. The whole draft is a crapshoot, but
yeah. But this year, with the emergence of their second-year receiver, Chris Godwin, they are moving Deshaun Jackson into the slot, which I think a lot of fans have been clamoring for, since the end of last season. And I think the coaching staff is making the right decision by that. Deshaun Jackson, like we said, is still one of the fastest receivers in the NFL. You look at the type of routes that the Eagles run. They run a lot of those slot wheel routes, little pick plays where they get their guys open. I don't know if there's a guy in the league that can maybe run a wheel route as good as Deshaun Jackson can. I know through the first 2 days of minicamp, which, you don't read too much into it, but I know that they've been very successful with that play. I know that they've been very successful with Jackson just running simple drag routes across the middle, simply because of his speed. There's not many guys that can keep up with him like that. So I think that the Buccaneers will definitely give him another shot this year. They'll have a different game plan for him. But yeah, last season was definitely a down year, without a doubt. But we'll see what this year holds. But they definitely do have a different game plan for Jackson coming up. He'll no longer be on the outside; he'll be on the inside, and I think that'll open up a lot more opportunities for him.
We're going to get to the defense once free agency and acquisitions come up. But one more offensive point. It was interesting to me, and I suspect this is similar to what the Bears did with Trey Burton and Adam Shaheen. I'm not sure if you're familiar, Alex, but it was interesting to me the extension that the Tampa Bay paid out to Cameron Brate when they already have a first rounder, a very promising first rounder in O.J. Howard. What is the plan and deployment there? Is the offense with Dirk Cutter and Winston going to have a lot of double tight sets where you want a long-term commitment for these two guys to be together for a while, and Howard and Brate?
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. The Buccaneers, they run a majority of their offensive sets out of two tight end personnel. And I think that's ultimately why they signed Cameron Brate. He was an undrafted guy out of Harvard. I don't know if you know the story or not, but he pretty much, he was cut by the Bucs 3 or 4 separate times. And he's during the last few years here, he's probably become, especially inside the red zone, Jameis Winston's favorite target. And it's honestly not even up for debate. You look at Evans inside the red zone, you say, oh, he's 6'5", just throw it up to him. Jameis finds Brate every time down the seam. So I think those two tight end sets, what they can do with those guys, it's hard. You look at the Bucs offense, and it's hard to cover everyone. And I think that the more weapons, the better. But yeah, I think some fans were surprised by the extension, but mostly down here, the feeling was that they were going to lock Cameron Brate up because they know how important he is, especially once the team gets into the red zone. But just to add on that, they have extremely high hopes for O.J. Howard. They have extremely high hopes for him. And I think that both of those now for the next, definitely for the next 4 years, because of the contracts, how they tie in. But, past that, I think that those two will be together for a long, long time.
Alex, the NFC South, we're not going to mince words here. It's one of the most difficult divisions in the NFL. It might be the most difficult. The Saints are coming up a year where, if not for blown coverage, they might have been in the NFC Championship game, maybe even farther. The Panthers coming up an 11-win season, still have Cam Newton, one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And the Falcons as well. All 3 teams ahead of the Buccaneers all made the postseason, and all could be reasonably be seen as quality NFC contenders moving forward. It depends. Things change in the NFL all the time, quickly in a time, but we're just going off the most recent results. With 2018 being such a big year for the Bucs, what do you think needs to happen for this team to compete, especially with that division, especially with 6 games that are going to be really difficult to get through for this organization?
Yeah, you said it. They play in the toughest division in the NFC, definitely in the NFC, and probably in the whole entire league.
Yeah.
All 3 teams, like you said, made the playoffs last year. But for this season, a lot of things have to change. After you go 5-11, after you had such high expectations, the coaching has to be better. The players have to be better. Everything really has to be better in order for them to be able to compete with those teams on a weekly basis, but also throughout the whole year. And like you said, those are 6 games against 6 playoff teams. Add in the Eagles and the Steelers, and I believe they play the Cowboys and the Giants. Those teams are no joke either. So it's not going to be easy this season to turn things around, and this is a year where the coaching staff is, the whole staff is, their jobs are probably on the line. But they got to get back to running the football. They have to establish a run game. Their offensive line heading into this year is better than it was last year. Obviously, we'll talk about the defense in a little bit. But they just got to get back to the basics. Get back to the basics. Get back to communicating better on the field. They've even said their communication last year on the field was very poor. So it's going to take a team effort. It's not going to be one individual player. It's not going to be Winston turns it around and the team goes 12-4. It's going to be a collective effort. It's got to start with, obviously it's got to start with Winston and Cutter, but it's also got to trickle down to the whole entire roster in order for them to turn around and try and compete. And if it's not competing for the division, maybe you're competing for the last wild card spot or something like that.
Yeah, it's a tough gauntlet indeed, but not insurmountable if they do. I mean, what you just said is it's cliche stuff, but that's what every football team needs to do, especially a team like the Buccaneers that is still, I guess, kind of learning how to win and learning how to compete.
Exactly. And I think when you look at the team, when you look at the Bucs roster from top to bottom, they have talent. Talent's not the question. It's how can the talent come together and how can the coaching staff maximize the talent that they have. You know what I mean? I mean, they have talent at nearly every position. And I know many people outside of Tampa will look at someone and be like, well, he's not a great right guard. Well, that's because they don't really know him, because they don't really watch him. But the talent, like I said, isn't the issue. Obviously, every team's going to have holes on their roster at some point. You can't fill everything. But overall, from a talent standpoint, heading into this season, I'm very confident. I'm just not that confident in the coaching staff to be able to turn it around.
Somber note. Free agency, and this is going to be because the Buccaneers had a pretty good defensive overhaul here in free agency.
Yeah, the whole defense.
Oh, okay. So the whole front line was essentially overhauled. You got Jason Pierre-Paul in a trade. You had Vinny Curry as defensive depth. You got Mitch Unrein as defensive line depth. Really getting Gerald McCoy, one of the premier interior defensive linemen in the NFL, some pass rush help, so he can't be double and triple teamed every play, and then the Buccaneers pass rush disappears completely, which, as I noted at the top of the show, the Bucs had the least amount of sacks in the league by far last year. That's just the truth of it. So this was a really big deal for them to get the depth and to get the quality starter like Pierre-Paul. Alex, talk to me about the impact of doing this and of getting, I guess, completing complimentary football, doing all that. It was an active free agency period. We're counting trades in it.
Yeah, I think when at the end of the season, when you looked at their roster, obviously, like you said, 22 sacks. I think 6 of them came in one game. So 22 minus 6 is 16. So that's 16 sacks over 15 games. That can't happen. So when you look at it, obviously you had to address the defensive line. You also had to address the secondary, and the O-line wasn't great, and neither was running backs. But getting back to the defensive line specifically, the thing that I like the most about what they did in overhauling the defensive line, every single player they added outside of Vita Vea, who they drafted in the first round with the 11th overall pick. 12th overall pick. Every player they added has played in the Super Bowl. And that, to me, is the biggest thing, because down on the trenches, you need guys that have experience. You need guys that know how to win these big football games. You have guys that just came off of winning a championship in Vinny Curry and Bo Allen, who they just added. Like you said, Mitch Unrein played for the Broncos, I believe, when they went to the Super Bowl. Jason Pierre-Paul won a Super Bowl with the Giants. So they added experience. They added guys who can do a lot of things. They added tough football players, and that's pretty much been been the motto all season long for Jason Light was to just be a tougher football team. Too many points at last season. They were just a weak football team. They're not very physical at the point of attack, and I think that that's definitely something that they wanted to address, and that's what they did. And I'm very, very excited to see Pierre-Paul and Curry and Vita Vea and all those guys line up next to McCoy. I'm glad that McCoy's finally going to have some help. He really hasn't had help since he's been here, and he's still put up great numbers, and he's made the Pro Bowl 6 times. So I think that this move will ultimately make the team a lot better, and I do not anticipate them getting 22 sacks again. And if they do, well, I guess it's just officially a curse down in Tampa.
Alex, give me a statistical baseline. I imagine the pass rush is the biggest aspect of what happened every agency, we've said. Give me a defensive ranking that you would be happy with this improved pass rush from 1 to 32.
In terms of sacks?
No. Like an overall defensive ranking.
Overall defensive ranking. Well, I believe they were 32nd last year.
Oh, they were actually 32nd. Okay, so what's an improvement that you would be happy with over last place in 2018 with this improved pass rush?
I would be happy with. I would probably be happy with anywhere from 10 to 15.
10 to 15, that's lofty, almost in the top half. Okay.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is not just because of the free agent acquisitions, but it's also because their first 3 draft picks were all defense as well. Like I mentioned, Vita Vea. Then they drafted 2 corners. They also took a safety in the 4th round. So the defensive overhaul wasn't just the line. It was pretty much the whole entire team. The whole entire defense outside of the linebackers pretty much got overhauled.
That's a nice segue. That's a nice segue into the draft, actually. You've mentioned Vea. You mentioned the corners, MJ Stewart, Carlton Davis, Ronald Jones in the 2nd round, Alex Kappa, a developmental tackle, potential starter, long-term starter in the 3rd round. Flyer, actually, I really love this pick in the 6th round, Jack Sihig.
Yeah, the linebacker. I think that that's actually like you said, it's a low risk, high reward type of pick for that team, because that kid, if it wasn't for his knee injuries, like people have said, probably would have been high 3rd round pick, possibly low 2nd round pick. So I think that that's a great depth signing, and if he can stay healthy, I think that'll prove a lot of dividends. But go on to I know you wanted to segue into the next part.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, who excites you the most from the class? So you've discussed Vea a lot. Who excites you the most from the draft class? So we've discussed Vea, we've discussed the linebacker C. Out of everybody else, who's gonna have the most impact in 2018, and who excites you the most?
I think the person who will have the most impact in 2018 is Carlton Davis.
Carlton Davis. Okay.
Yeah, I believe that what he brings. He is also that physical type corner, that get in your face. He's going to play press coverage. He's going to bump and run you the whole way. So I think that, their secondary was also horrible last season. It was just a bad combination. No pass rush, no cover corners. It's hard to win football games that way. He's that man-to-man guy. I think that he's going to give those pass rushers, just a second more to get home. Now he plays opposite of Brent Grimes. They're going to move Vernon Hargraves into the slot, which I think he's better suited at. And MJ Stewart's kind of going to be this bring along guy, depth guy. He'll step in, he'll fill in. But yeah, I think Carlton Davis will have the best impact in 2018. But for the future, for long term, I think Vita Vea is going to be the best player out of this draft class for that team.
Yeah, a guy that's people occasionally mocked into the top 10, and He almost actually made it into there, so not a shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a total shock that you'd say that.
Yeah, no, I love Vita Vea. I think that, a lot of Bucks fans, when I tell you a lot, I probably mean about 90% of them were extremely disappointed that the team did not select Derwin James. Um, him being a Florida State guy, and all that stuff. I think that they were extremely disappointed. I'm one that looks at it and says, put him next to McCoy, Pierre-Paul, Curry. You got something there. And I think that, those four are really going to come together and really going to, improve this football team.
We finally come to Bears and Buccaneers, Alex. And did you know that this is the 5th straight season where the two will meet?
Yeah, that's what happens when we constantly finish last in the division.
Hey, I wasn't going to say that. You didn't have to say that. That's not. Yeah, that's true. That's totally true. But yeah, for the 5th straight season, the Bears and Buccaneers are going to meet. And I'm looking at the history now. The Buccaneers have won the last two in blowout fashion.
Yep.
The Bears actually won, I believe, the two previous. But this time around, the Bucs visit Chicago. Alex, so we're gonna just to focus on this from 2 points. What is one area that the Bears, in your mind, should be concerned about with the Buccaneers? An area where the Bucs can exploit the Bears in this matchup.
Well, I think that they can exploit them, with the weapons that they have on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a knock against the Bears. I think that the Buccaneers can exploit many teams with their offensive weapons. I think when you look at it, you got Evans. I know you guys re-signed Fuller, but is he really tall enough to match up against Evans? I don't know.
Not many corners are. Not many.
Yeah, exactly. Evans has had decent success against Chicago the last few years, but you just, like I said, you look down, you got Evans, Jackson, Godwin, Humphreys, Ronald Jones now, Brate, Howard. I mean, it's tough. It's tough for any team to match up against, and I think that when the Buccaneers win football games, all those guys are involved. All those guys get it going. It's early enough in the season this year, I believe. I believe the game's week 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No, it's week 4, so it's
week 4. Okay, yeah, so it's early enough in the season. So the weather,
Chicago. Yep.
Yeah, the weather shouldn't be too much of a factor. But yeah, I definitely think that they can exploit them through the air, and that's my we'll call it my expert prediction, I guess.
What is one area? So for all of the improvements the Bucs have made and for all the talent they have at each position, what is one area that still concerns you where the Bears can specifically attack and perhaps find a weakness to win the game?
Well, I think as much as I said, I'm confident in Carlton Davis will have the biggest impact. I think you also have to look at it at the other side. He's still going to be a rookie.
Right.
You got Brent Grimes, who's probably playing his last season in the NFL. He signed a 1-year deal. I think he's 35. You got Vernon Hargreaves, who he was their 11th overall pick back in 2015. And people don't really talk about him being the draft bust because Roberto Aguayo was selected in the 2nd round, and everyone turns to that pick and says, oh, well, he's off the team. That was the biggest draft bust ever. But Vernon Hargreaves hasn't formed into that guy that they hoped, and that's yet. Obviously, he's still young, going into his 3rd year. So the secondary still concerns me a little bit. Safeties are okay. Our safeties are all right, nothing special. So I think, that concerns me. And I think when you look at it, you guys added Allen Robinson, Trey Burton, Taylor Gabriel, Anthony Miller. So you guys, Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen. So you guys have weapons as well. So I think we'll see a little bit of maybe a different game than we've seen from the Bears in the past. I think maybe they're looking to open the playbook a bit more and have Trubisky go out there and throw to all his new toys.
Alex, are you saying we're going to see a game in the 40s for both Tampa Bay and Chicago? Like this is going to be the game of the year? Is that I'm getting that sense?
Are we going to be the Seattle Houston game last year?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Are we about to see a shootout?
I mean, it'd be a great game to watch. But I don't know about a shootout. I would maybe say in the high 20s maybe.
Okay, yeah, that's less fun. That's a cop out.
Yeah. I mean, that's a normal football game, I guess.
We'll close this episode out, Alex. I mentioned it to you. So, with the Warriors winning their second straight championship and LeBron James pending free agency, he's very likely to leave Cleveland, and find another supporting cast. Where do you think he's going to end up? What's your opinion on LeBron? Take this wherever you want. I personally, and I'll just leave this off unless you finish it, I think he should go to San Antonio. I think he's going to end up in Philadelphia, but I think he should go to San Antonio, have Greg Popovich as coach, play with Kawhi and Leonard, and that'd be pretty cool to see the Spurs, Pop, and LeBron. I mean, to me, that's like basketball porn. But
yeah,
I digress. Yeah. For what's your stance on all this?
Well, I think when you look at it, I think Popovich, LeBron, Kawhi, LaMarcus Aldridge, they have those two young guys down there. I think LeBron's going to have to take a hard look at that. And if Popovich can get in a room with LeBron, maybe he can convince him. Popovich is arguably the best head coach of all time. You can maybe make an argument. Probably not. He's probably top 3 of all time. Where I think LeBron will end up, either Philly or LA. If I had to say right now, I'll probably lean towards Philly. Because I think that he knows, LeBron deep down knows, the only chance for him to catch Michael Jordan is if he continues to make finals. And if he makes finals, well, not only make finals, he's got to win finals. If he goes to LA, he not only has to beat the Warriors, but he has to beat the Rockets. He has to possibly beat the Thunder if they get Paul George back. Maybe the Thunder have an improved year. He's got to beat the Spurs with a healthy Kawhi. The Jazz, the Nuggets. I mean, the West that's a tough conference. He stays in the East with Philly. Really, the only team he's got to worry about is Boston.
Yeah.
And we've seen over the years, no matter where LeBron plays, he dominates Boston. When it matters the most, LeBron shows up against Boston, and we saw that this year. Thankfully, we didn't see any of that magic in the finals. As I told you a little bit before, I'm not really a LeBron fan. I respect his game, and I think that he's unbelievable to watch. But I don't like his personality. I don't like a lot of the things he says. A lot of just stuff like that. And I can't stand the Jordan LeBron debate. I can't take it anymore.
It never ends. And I say this as someone that lives in Chicago.
Yeah.
I'm too young to have been annoyed by it because oh man, how dare they think LeBron would be better than Jordan? It's just like people don't shut up about it, Alex. That's what it is. It never stops.
Yeah, I'm too young to watch Jordan as well. But the thing that I turn to with the Jordan LeBron debate is the very simple thing that Jordan was 6-0 in the finals, and he never needed a Game 7. And then you look at LeBron's case. Now he's 3-6. He's been saved by Ray Allen and Kyrie Irving a few times. Obviously he's a great basketball player, like I said before. But I just think that until he at least wins 1 or 2 more rings, I don't even think it's a question. I mean, LeBron James, the biggest blemish in his career and something that he'll never live down, and I don't think any LeBron hater will live down, is that he got outplayed by Jason Terry. I mean, that was the biggest blemish in his career, and I don't think that's something he'll ever get over. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not something he'll ever get over. Not something the Jordan-LeBron debate the Jordan side will ever let LeBron down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Let's not start this. Let's not start this.
Oh yeah, no,
I'm not even debating against you. I generally agree with you.
yeah,
I've
no, I'm
read
done with it. I'm done with
in
it.
the past 2 months.
Oh yeah, no, I can't take it. My one friend is an absolute LeBron lover, and I can't take it. But it's always good to have the conversation. It's a good sports topic.
Yeah, it's one of those that'll probably really never stop.
Yeah, no,
People love to debate the GOAT in each sport,
yeah.
unless absolutely unquestionable.
All
But
right, here's a quick random question for you.
okay.
Quarterback in the NFL right now. You're 1 year. You need 1 year. Who are you taking? Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady?
Aaron Rodgers, he does more.
So you're
Absolutely.
taking Rodgers over Brady.
I think Rodgers does more. I think if you give Rodgers supporting the Patriots supporting cast and coaching staff, he plays better as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely
I respect
think.
Tom Brady. I think he's arguably the greatest of all time. But um, this football is a little bit different than basketball, where Rodgers hasn't had the same team support, and I just think Rodgers is more individually talented than Brady. I think he's
Yeah, I would definitely agree on that individual talent standpoint. I think Rodgers is probably one of the most talented, if not the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. But if I had to take one season, um, I would probably lean towards Brady just because of what he's accomplished.
well.
But that's another good debate.
Hold on, because you started up. Here's the thing. You give Rodgers, Bill Belichick. You give Rodgers some of the defenses that Brady's enjoyed. You give him Rob Gronkowski. You give him Randy Moss. You give him Wes Welker. You're telling me Rodgers wouldn't perform better? You're telling me you wouldn't take Rodgers over that if they had the same exact roster? If they had the same exact roster and coaching staff?
Well, that's a good point. But also, you have to look at it. Gronkowski he's missed a lot of time.
Well, I'm saying when he's healthy on the field.
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously Gronkowski and Rodgers would be, unbelievable together. But really, the last few years, I don't think Brady has had the best supporting cast. They missed Edelman last year. He's going to be suspended again this year. I mean, Chris Hogan, I don't know. I mean, at least Rodgers, he does have Cobb, and he has I'm drawing a blank on the other guy. I know they had Nelson. I can't think of the other guy's name right now.
Randall Cobb?
No, I got Cobb. I got Nelson. Who's the other one? Oh, man, this is going to bug me. Yeah, Devontae Adams.
Okay.
I think Devontae Adams is a really, really underrated receiver in this league. So I think when you look at it, it's a good debate. Obviously, you put Belichick and Rodgers together. I mean, the dream scenario in that case is Rodgers, Belichick, and like Gronkowski, Adams, and Nelson, and they're all in their primes. You know what I mean? I mean,
put them in the AFC though, not the NFC.
Oh yeah, please! I can't stand the NFC.
Oh, excuse me. Whoops. Yeah, we could have these conversations forever, Alex, but on that note, I appreciate you coming on. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Salvarezza_Alex. That's at SALVAREZZA_Alex. Find his work at Bucs Nation, SB Nation's Bucs Nation. Does great work there. And like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time, buddy, to break all this down and to debate the GOATs with me.
Yeah, man, no problem. I mean, I know I don't know how you work it in the regular season, but be happy to the week of the Bucs Bears game, if it I'd be happy to jump on and do a little bit of a preview or something like that, depending on how the first 4 weeks go and everything.
Yeah, we'll definitely have more information. We'll have more football information as opposed to
for sure. So I definitely be around in that. We'll stay in touch.
He is Alex Salvarezza, as I mentioned, at Salvarezza_Alex on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at WCG Gridiron, and follow me on Twitter at Robert Zaglinski. We're going to keep this series going through the summer, breaking it through. but it's still a lengthy way to go. Appreciate you guys listening in and staying with us. As always, stay classy.